I was moving, and then I wasn't, or not fast enough, or someone moved into my lane without what my ego self considered adequate acknowledgement of my presence. Or the light changed at precisely the wrong moment, or I don't know, the driver ahead was treating a road built for speed as though it were a place to simply travel. And something ignited. Not slowly, not with any deliberation, just instantly, completely the way only the ego self can move when its territory is threatened, especially mine. Because that's what happened. Not an inconvenience, a threat. My ego self had climbed into inside 2,000 kilograms of metal and glass and made it an extension of itself. My space, my speed, my trajectory through the world, my right to arrive exactly when I decided I should arrive. And when that extension of self was impeded, when the universe failed to clear the path my ego self had already mapped in its mind, the response was not proportionate to the event, let's just say, put it mildly, because it never is. Let me be honest about what my ego self does behind the wheel. It narrates, constant, a running commentary on the competence and consideration of every other driver within visible range. It judges, it categorizes, it assigns motives to strangers who will never know they've been tried and convicted in the private courtroom of my moving vehicle. They're not paying attention. They think they own the road. Of course they pull out now. The other drivers in this dream are not people, you see, not consciousnesses navigating their own complexity, not human beings with their own reasons for being exactly where they are at exactly this speed in exactly this moment. No, they are obstacles, affronts, characters in a story my ego self is writing in real time about its own perpetual victimhood at the hands of everyone who drives differently than it does. And the body? This is what I've noticed most clearly. The body is fully recruited into the story. My jaw tightens up. My hands grip the wheel with a force the situation doesn't require, but it can't release. My chest contracts. My breath shallows. I'm a monster. The entire physical instrument of my life enlisted in a narrative about a stranger who will have forgotten this moment before they reach their destination. And yet, I've made it so important. My body, the same body I'm trying to inhabit more fully, to listen to more carefully, to treat as an instrument of my presence, is now being used as an amplifier for my ego's outrage about traffic. But here's where it gets more honest than road rage. Here's the part my ego self works very hard not to examine directly. I want to go faster than is safe. I want to arrive sooner than the road conditions allow. I am willing in the dream, in the trance, in the complete unconsciousness of the ego self behind the wheel. I am willing to take risks with life, my own, the strangers in the other car, the pedestrian at the crossing, the child at the curb. Not because I'm reckless by nature, no, but because my ego self, even when it's running the vehicle, has its priorities arranged in a very specific and very revealing order. My schedule, my time, my sense of unimpeded movement through the world, all of that above life. Not consciously, never consciously. My ego self would be horrified at that sentence. It would protest loudly with great sincerity. But the behavior tells the truth, the ego self won't. Why else would I tailgate someone for driving at the speed limit? Why else would I feel genuine anger at a stranger for being cautious in conditions that warrant caution? Why else would I accelerate past someone on a road that punishes mistakes with consequences that cannot be undone? The ego self behind the wheel reveals something the ego self in calmer moments would never admit. Have you noticed? It values its own preferences above almost everything, including the irreplaceable. And I've sat with that honestly, not with self-flagellation. No, not the ego self now turning its criticism on itself in a different costume. Done with that. But with genuine, clear-eyed recognition. My ego self, when it's driving, doesn't always remember that other people are real. There's something else worth naming here. The vehicle itself. I've noticed how much of my identity my ego self has quietly loaded into this object. The make, the model, the condition, the speed it's capable of, the statement it makes about who I am as I move through the world. One of the most visible things I own. One of the most expensive. And the ego self, which is always looking for objects to drape its identity over. Always searching for external things to confirm its internal story about itself. You see, I can't even associate with this, identify with this at this point. But I found all of this is in the vehicle a particularly useful canvas for all of this. This is my car. This is my lane. This is my right to move at my chosen speed through a road I share with everyone. The possessiveness is so complete, I stopped noticing it was possessiveness until the drift, until the ignition, until someone in another vehicle did something that reminded my ego self painfully, and electrically, that the road is not actually mine, that nothing really is. My observer self returns here through the body. And that's what I've noticed about this particular drift, the mental return, I'm in the dream again. That comes second. What comes first is a physical shift, something in the body that loosens slightly, the jaw unclenching, the hands releasing their unnecessary wrenching, choking grip on the wheel, the breath finding its natural depth again. The body reporting back before the mind catches up. This tension isn't required. This story isn't true. This stranger in that car is a person, a consciousness, here, like me, just moving through the world. And with that recognition, that simple, almost embarrassingly obvious recognition, something deflates. Not dramatically. The ego self doesn't surrender with fanfare, It just loses its grip slightly. The narrative loses its authority. The affront reveals itself as the invention it always was. my observer self steps forward into the space my ego self just vacated. And from there, the drive looks completely different. Not because the traffic changed. Same cars, same roads, same occasional obstruction or inconsiderate merge. But my relationship to it all is completely different. From the observer's self's perspective, I'm not a self being impeded. I'm an awareness moving through space, sharing that space with other awarenesses also moving through. All of us with our destinations and our timing and our reasons for being exactly where we are. The road as a kind of commons, place where everybody is. A shared territory that belongs to no one and therefore to everyone. And in that recognition, my body relaxes fully. My jaw relaxes, the hands, the chest, the present moment arriving inside the vehicle, through me, for me, patient as always, holding nothing against me for the miles I spent somewhere else and not in actually driving my car. And then gently, without the ego's self-drama, I question my observer self as stared it asking on long drives. What am I actually rushing towards? Not rhetorically, not rhetorically, but genuinely. Because most of the time, when I examine the destination honestly, it doesn't contain anything worth the cost of the journey my ego self was willing to make to reach it faster. You get what I'm saying? The meeting will happen whether I arrive 2 minutes early or 2 minutes late. The errand will be completed either way. The day will unfold as days do, mostly without consulting my ego's self-preferred timeline. And the life I almost endangered, mine and others, to arrive marginally sooner, still here, still breathing, still the most extraordinary thing on the road. That's right. So the next time I'm behind the wheel and something ignites before the narrative begins, how dare they? Before the courtroom convenes, they're wrong. Before my ego self appoints itself judge of everyone else's driving, that's not how you merge. I want to feel the hands on the wheel. Just that. The physical sensation of my hands on the wheel. The body present inside the vehicle. My observer self back in the driver's seat where it belongs. One breath. The stranger ahead of me, a consciousness, going somewhere, for reasons I'll never know and don't need to. The road, shared, common, nobody's territory. My time, not more valuable than a life, not more valuable than presence, not more valuable than arriving at my destination as the person I'm trying to become, rather than the one my ego self defaults to when it thinks nobody is watching. The present moment is always in the car with me. My ego self just keeps forgetting to let it drive. If something in this episode found you somewhere you recognize, you're already awake enough to know it. And that recognition, that quiet sense of yes, I know that place, is your observer self identifying itself, confirming that it was here the entire time, watching, waiting, ready to step forward the moment you gave it your attention. And that's not nothing. That's everything. If you want to go further, if the territory we've been exploring feels like somewhere worth spending more time, the frequency arc is where this work lives. It's a gathering place, built for those ready to raise their frequency and remember their connection to something larger than the ego self's daily drama. It's not a system, it's not a doctrine. It's just a space where authentic frequency does the work that argument and explanation cannot. You'll find it at the frequency arc, and I'll leave the details in the notes for this episode. And just so you know, there are more episodes in this series, each one a different drift, each one the same 3 movements, each one an ordinary moment revealing something extraordinary about the consciousness experiencing it. Come back for the next one, or find another episode that calls to you, or another podcast that calls to you. The present moment will be there when you arrive. It always is.